I have 3 kids. But lately, it feels like I only have 2. My son, Tyler, is 27. He was once the life of the house, taller than his siblings, goofy in his humor, always humming some video game soundtrack, and full of theories about anime and tech. But that was years ago. Now, he's a ghost. He doesn't talk. He doesn't laugh. He doesn't even blink normally. Every day, he sits in his room. His TV is always on, always something mindless like static YouTube playlists or game streams, but he's not watching it. He lies on his back on the bed, staring up at the ceiling. Hours go by. Daylight fades. Still he lies there. Motionless. Sometimes I press my ear to his door just to make sure I can hear him breathing. This isn't just depression. It's like vacancy. Like his body's there, but the soul's checked out. I know how that sounds. At dinner, he won't join us. He silently takes a plate and vanishes into his room. The door clicks shut. No good night. No thanks, Mom. Nothing. Last night I finally mustered the courage to knock. Just knock. It felt like approaching a wild animal in the woods. I tapped lightly. A pause. Then I heard his voice, low and flat. Yeah? I made some stew, I said. I'm not hungry. But I saw you didn't eat lunch either. I'm not hungry. I exhaled, resting my head against the door. Tyler, can we talk? Silence. Then, life is too short. That's all he said. No context. Just that. Life is too short. Then the sound of the TV getting louder. This morning, I did something I'm not proud of. I waited until he went to work. He works part-time at a video game store nearby, managed by our neighbor, Greg, and I went into his room. The air hit me like a slap. It smelled like old laundry, synthetic snacks, and something metallic. The curtains were taped shut, sealing every crack of light. On the ceiling, there were pinholes, tiny dots poked through the paint, almost like he'd tried to form constellations above his bed. I sat at his desk. His laptop was open. I shouldn't have gone through it, I know that. But fear makes us bold. I clicked through his browser history. Hundreds of tabs. Video games. Mod downloads. Tutorials. But then, darker things. Violent forums. Endless pages of pornography. Hours and hours of it. And yet, no messages. No chats. Not even a single email response. Just consumption. No expression. Just taking it all in, silently. He was a ghost online too. My heart was hammering when I shut the laptop. I felt like I'd just stolen from someone else's life. I needed to understand him. So I walked next door to talk to Greg. Greg met me in the driveway, wiping grease off his hands. He'd been fixing his bike. I need to ask you something, I said. About Tyler. He stopped. Everything okay? Has he been acting strange at work? Greg raised his eyebrows. Strange how? He doesn't talk to us. He never leaves his room. He just stares at the ceiling. Literally. 4 hours. Greg nodded slowly. Yeah. I've noticed. You have? He barely speaks at the store. Just rings people up. Won't upsell. Won't answer customers unless they ask him something directly. Sometimes I find him standing behind the counter, just looking up at the ceiling tiles. My stomach dropped. You think he's okay? I asked. Greg hesitated. Then he said, he's not dangerous, if that's what you're asking. But he's not present either. That night, I dreamed of Tyler as a little boy. Running around the backyard in a cardboard robot costume he'd made himself, yelling I am Tylertron, with aluminum foil antennae bouncing on his head. And now, I can't even get him to say 10 words. Something happened. I just don't know what. Something broke in him. I don't know if it's trauma, or addiction, or something else entirely. All I know is, I want my son back. Even if it's just for one real conversation. Just one. The night after I checked Tyler's laptop, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that sea of browser tabs. An endless tide of digital windows, each one showing me another piece of a puzzle I didn't want to solve. A puzzle that looked more and more like a dark void. I thought about telling my husband, but he's the type to either explode or shut down. And I needed clarity, not chaos. So I did something worse. I went back into Tyler's room. The curtains still sealed out the sun. I peeled a corner of the tape and let in a single beam of morning light. Dust danced in the shaft like snowflakes, but the room stayed dim. Unmoved. I sat at his desk again. This time, I plugged in a flash drive. I knew how wrong it was, violating his privacy, copying things he hadn't offered, but what scared me more was what I might never know if I didn't. His folders were mostly games. Mods. Some artwork, pixel stuff, quiet and haunting. Figures with no eyes. Rooms with no doors. Then I found a folder labeled simply, quiet_thoughts. Inside, text files. Dozens. Maybe more. I clicked open the first one. 04-11.txt. I wonder if I'm still alive. Not biologically. But mentally. Is a person still considered alive if their soul has left the building? I go to work, come home, lie down, stare. I pretend I'm on pause. But the world never stops. It just gets louder. And I get quieter. Another file. 04-14.txt. People say sunlight helps. But it doesn't. It burns. It exposes. It makes me feel like I'm being examined, not healed. I hate the way the world shines when I feel like darkness is my only comfort. And another. 04-18.txt. I bought 3 new games today. I won't play them. I just want to own something. Something I can control. Something that makes me feel like I still have choices. I sat back, heart thudding. He wasn't just out of it. He was unraveling. Silently. Privately. With no one to see except the ceiling. I went through more entries. Some were loops of the same thoughts, like a song on repeat. He kept writing about not wanting to disappear but feeling like he already had. He mentioned people's faces being too loud, his own voice sounding fake, and a growing fear that someone was watching him. Sometimes he'd just write one line. Do they know I'm not here? Or, I think the ceiling blinks. I couldn't stop reading. It was like a horror story that had replaced my child. And then I found something that sent ice through my spine. 05-01.txt. She came in today. She looked at me like she used to when I was 10 and had the flu. Worried. Soft. I wanted to tell her I'm sorry. But I couldn't move my mouth. I'm sorry, Mom. For whatever's coming. I'm sorry. Whatever's coming. I stood up, breath shallow. Panic clawed its way up my throat. I didn't know what he meant, but it sounded final. I needed help. But help meant admitting that something was deeply wrong. Not just odd. Not just a phase. Broken. And maybe dangerous. I paced the kitchen for an hour before doing the only thing I could think of. I called Greg again. He answered on the second ring. Hey. I need to talk. Now. He met me in his garage this time, away from his family. I showed him a few of the files on the flash drive. Greg read in silence. I saw his jaw clench, his brows furrow. Damn, he whispered. He's not just being weird, Greg, I said. He's spiraling. Yeah, this is beyond just zoning out. I looked at him. Have you ever seen him do anything dangerous? Like talk to himself? Lash out? Greg hesitated. Then, he once stood in the back room for nearly 2 hours. Just standing there. Not moving. I asked if he was okay, he didn't even flinch. When I touched his shoulder, he blinked like I'd woken him from a dream. "Greg," I whispered, "what if he hurts himself?" He exhaled. "We need to get him help. Real help. Can I force him? I don't know. But maybe we start by getting someone who can talk to him. Like a crisis therapist." I nodded, swallowing hard. Okay. That night, I sat at the dinner table like usual. Tyler came out, took his plate silently, turned to go. But this time I said, "Can you eat with us tonight? Just 5 minutes." He paused. A long, uncomfortable pause. Then, to my shock, he sat down. Right across from me. Fork in hand. He didn't eat. He just stared at his food. And then, without looking up, he said, "Why are you afraid of me?" My throat tightened. "I'm not afraid of you, honey. I'm afraid for you." Another long silence. "I'm not going to hurt you," he whispered. "I know. I'm not going to hurt anyone." I reached across the table, hand trembling. "Then help me understand. Please." He looked up at me. His eyes were sunken, tired, but finally, focused. "I don't know what I am anymore," he said. "But I don't feel like a person." Later that night, after he went to bed, I called a crisis center. They told me someone could come by. A counselor. A quiet visit. No judgment. I agreed. "They're coming tomorrow. I don't know what's going to happen. But I know I can't wait for the ceiling to blink anymore." The crisis counselor arrived at 10:03 a.m. She was gentle, soft-spoken. Her name was Laura. She wore a pale blue cardigan and carried a leather-bound notebook, but didn't write a single thing down at first. I liked that. It made her feel more human than clinical. She asked me to stay in the room while she met Tyler. I warned her he might not say anything. He hadn't really spoken much in weeks. Maybe months. She just nodded and said, "That's okay." Silence is a form of language too. We went upstairs together. Tyler was sitting on the bed, legs crossed, staring at the wall this time. Not the ceiling. "Progress?" "Hi, Tyler," Laura said gently. "My name's Laura. I just wanted to talk for a little while. That all right with you?" He blinked. I held my breath. Then, slowly, he said, "Are you my therapist?" Laura smiled softly. "Not yet. Just a guest. Think of me like a visitor from a quieter planet." Tyler actually snorted, just barely. But it was something. They spoke for 18 minutes. I counted. Mostly, Laura spoke in observations. "It seems like this room is your safe space. You like to keep it dim. I notice you have a lot of unopened games on your shelf. Are they gifts?" Tyler replied occasionally. 1 or 2-word answers. But his voice was steady. No longer floating like a ghost's. I left them alone halfway through. I couldn't sit there without crying. When Laura came down later, she sat with me in the kitchen. "He's very guarded," she said. "But not unreachable. Did he say why he feels like this?" She hesitated. "He mentioned feeling watched." "Watched?" My stomach tightened. "By who?" He didn't say. But the feeling is persistent. Chronic. He also used the word rotting, as in, something inside him is rotting. That's classic language for self-alienation. I felt tears burning behind my eyes. What do I do? I'd like to recommend an in-home therapist. Someone trained in disassociation, derealization, maybe complex PTSD. I blinked. PTSD? She nodded. Sometimes, trauma doesn't look like panic attacks or flashbacks. Sometimes, it looks like silence. Numbness. Vanishing into yourself. I nodded, slowly, not trusting my voice. After she left, I sat on the couch and tried to remember every bad thing that had ever happened to Tyler. And I kept coming up blank. No car accident. No assault. No major loss. He'd never even broken a bone. He was a quiet kid, yes, but happy. Maybe introverted, but not like this. Unless... there was one thing. That afternoon, I knocked on Greg's door again. He answered quickly, looking like he hadn't slept much either. "Got a minute?" I asked. "Of course." We sat on his porch. I sipped cold coffee. He lit a cigarette but didn't inhale. Just held it for the smell. "I need to ask you something," I said. "And I need you to be honest." Greg looked over, eyes wary. "Do you know if something ever happened to Tyler when he was a kid? Something bad?" His jaw tightened. He didn't speak for a moment. "Greg," I pushed, "he keeps writing about being watched. About feeling poisoned. Rotting inside. Like someone hurt him but he doesn't know how to say it." Greg finally exhaled. There was one thing. The porch felt suddenly smaller. "I didn't think it was anything back then," he continued. "But now, maybe I was wrong." He leaned forward, elbows on knees. "About 8 years ago, I came home early from a trip. My wife wasn't supposed to be home either, but I had forgotten something. When I pulled into the driveway, I saw Tyler leaving our backyard." "What?" I asked, confused. "Why would he be there?" "That's what I asked him." He looked startled. Said he was just returning a controller I'd lent him. But I never lent him anything. I stared at Greg. "And?" "I asked my daughter, Serena, about it. She said Tyler used to come by sometimes. But she never told me what for." Serena was the same age as Tyler. They were close once. But suddenly I remembered, they hadn't spoken in years. Something had shifted between them and I never knew why. "What happened with Serena?" I asked. Greg shook his head. "She refused to talk about it. Said she didn't want to make trouble. I always assumed they had a falling out. But maybe it was more." I stood up, a cold wave of realization hitting me. "Where's Serena now?" "She lives in the city." "You think I should call her?" "No," I said. "I will." I found Serena's number in an old group chat on Facebook. My hands trembled as I typed. "Hey Serena. This is Tyler's mom. I know it's been a while, but I really need to talk to you. Please. It's urgent." She didn't reply for hours. I paced the living room, reheated coffee I never drank, stared at Tyler's bedroom door like it was a vault hiding a truth I could no longer avoid. Finally, around 7 p.m., my phone buzzed. "Hi. I was hoping this day would never come. But I knew it might. I'll call you." The phone rang almost immediately after. "Hello?" I said. "Hi, Mrs. Fields." Her voice was older than I remembered. Steadier. But brittle, like paper folded too many times. "I don't know what's going on," she began, "but I always wondered if Tyler would be okay. He stopped talking to me after that summer." "Which summer?" 2017, the year before he dropped out of college. "Did something happen?" I asked softly. She was quiet for a long time. Then, I told him something. Something I saw. I waited, heart in my throat. "I saw your brother," she said. "In your garage. With Tyler." My stomach flipped. "My brother?" She nodded, voice smaller. "I saw him push Tyler up against the wall. He was touching him. I think he thought no one could see. But I did. Through the window." Tyler didn't say anything. Just froze. I couldn't breathe. "I didn't know what to do," Serena whispered. "So I told Tyler. I told him I saw. That he wasn't crazy. That someone knew. I gripped the phone tighter, vision blurring. "He never spoke to me again after that," she said. "He just shut down." I thanked her. I don't even remember how the call ended. My brother had moved out of town 5 years ago. I hadn't spoken to him in nearly 2. I never knew why Tyler always avoided him at holidays. I thought it was just teenage moods. I was wrong. So deeply, tragically wrong. And now I knew. The rod had a name. And tomorrow, I had to decide what to do with it. I didn't sleep that night. The house was too quiet. Too dark. The air felt thick, like guilt had crept through the vents and blanketed every wall. My brother. My own brother. The thought made me nauseous. My hands shook every time I tried to sip water. I wanted to scream, punch something, rewind time and burst into that garage years ago. But I didn't. I just sat. Sat and waited for morning, knowing that when the sun rose, I would have to break the silence Tyler had wrapped around himself like a shroud. At 6:40 a.m., I heard movement upstairs. Tyler was awake. He didn't come downstairs. But I heard the creak of his bed, the soft click of his lamp. I walked up the stairs like I was approaching a church altar. Slow, careful, trembling. I knocked gently. He didn't answer. So I knocked again. "It's me," I whispered. A long pause. Then, "Yeah. I need to talk." He didn't say no. That was enough. I opened the door. He was sitting on the floor, knees to his chest, eyes fixed on the curtain taped like it was sacred scripture. His skin was pale, the shadows under his eyes darker than ever. I sat cross-legged beside him, not too close. Just near. "I talked to Serena yesterday," I said softly. His body tensed, almost imperceptibly. A breath held too long. "She told me what she saw." His head turned a fraction of an inch. "I'm sorry I didn't know," I continued. "I'm sorry I never asked. I should have seen it. I should have protected you." He didn't move. But his hands curled into fists. "My brother," I said, the word tasting like poison. "He hurt you." Silence. The kind of silence that feels like thunder. Then, in the quietest voice I've ever heard, he said I was imagining it. My eyes welled up instantly. He said it was a dream. That if I told anyone, they'd think I was crazy. His shoulders trembled. And then he smiled like it was a joke. Like I was a joke. I reached out and gently touched his hand. He didn't pull away. "You're not crazy, Tyler. You never were. And it wasn't your fault." He blinked slowly. Then again. "I wanted to disappear," he whispered. "Not because of what he did. But because I thought I let it happen." My heart shattered. "You didn't let anything happen, baby. You froze. That's what the body does when it's scared. It protects you. You survived." He shook his head. "But I never told you. I didn't even let myself think about it for years. I just started shrinking." He exhaled shakily. "I stare at the ceiling because it doesn't judge me. It doesn't ask questions. It doesn't pity me. It just is." We sat in silence again. This time, not the kind that suffocates, but the kind that allows you to breathe for the first time in years. "I want to get help," he said suddenly. I looked at him, eyes wide. "I'm tired of pretending I'm a hollow thing. I want to feel real again." Tears slipped down my cheeks. "We'll find someone," I said. "Someone good. Someone safe. And I'll be with you every step." He nodded. Then, in a voice just barely louder than a breath, "Thank you for finding me." Later that day, I called Laura. She came over within the hour. I told her everything. She didn't flinch. She just listened, eyes kind, posture soft. She said she knew a trauma therapist who specialized in childhood sexual abuse. We made an appointment. Tyler agreed to go. And for the first time in years, he sat at the dinner table with us that night. He didn't eat much. But he was there. Present. And before he left to go back upstairs, he turned to me and said, "I love you, Mom." 3 words. But they felt like a symphony. That night, I lay in bed and thought about the long road ahead. The therapy. The pain. The anger. The legal decisions we'd have to face. But I also thought about light. About how even the smallest crack can let sunlight pour in. And I knew. This wasn't the end. It was the beginning. 3 weeks have passed since Tyler told me the truth. The house feels different now. Not fixed. Not whole. But real. There's sound again. Some mornings I hear him moving around in his room, not pacing, not restless, just living. He even plays music sometimes. The first time I heard his speaker hum with lo-fi beats, I sat in the hallway and wept quietly for 10 minutes. He started therapy last Tuesday. The first session lasted an hour. He came home afterward and didn't say much, but he looked at me, really looked at me, and said, "It was hard. But I think I'll go back." I didn't push for more. Healing doesn't happen in one monologue. It happens in fragments. Moments. And he was beginning to collect them. Today, the sunlight hit different. For the first time in over a year, Tyler opened his curtains. It started slowly. Just a small slit of daylight. Then the tape came down. Then the blinds turned. Then, finally, the windows opened. He didn't say anything. Just let the breeze in. Later, I asked if he wanted to take a walk. "Too bright," he replied. I nodded. "But maybe this weekend," he added. My breath caught. "Really?" He shrugged, but his lips twitched, something halfway between a smile and a twitch of hope. "Yeah. Maybe." We sat on the back porch that night. Just the 2 of us. The air was cool, stars scattered above. I handed him a blanket and he took it without flinching. "How's therapy going?" I asked gently. He took a long sip of water. "It's like putting together a puzzle with no edge pieces. And every time I find a new piece, I don't know if I'm supposed to feel better or worse." I nodded. "That sounds really hard." "It is. But I don't want to quit." "You don't have to," I said. "And you don't have to do it alone." He was quiet for a while. Then, "Do you remember when I was little, and I used to pretend I was a spaceship pilot?" I smiled. "Yes. You made those paper control panels taped to the walls. I used to imagine I could leave the planet any time I wanted. Just press a button, and boom, I was gone." I didn't speak. "But now," he continued, "I don't want to leave anymore. I just want to land." The next day, we spoke to a lawyer. It was Tyler's idea. He said he didn't want revenge, he just didn't want the silence to protect his abuser anymore. "I want to reclaim my story," he said. "Even if nothing happens. I want it on record. I want the truth to exist outside of my head." It was a long process. Statements. Documentation. Emotional exhaustion. But Tyler didn't waver. His hands trembled when he signed the report, but he didn't look away. Serena came to visit last weekend. They hadn't spoken in 7 years. When she saw Tyler at the door, she froze. "I didn't know if you'd want to see me," she said, voice trembling. "I'm sorry I disappeared," he replied. "I didn't know how to stay." They sat in the garden for an hour. Didn't talk much. Just sat. It was enough. Sometimes rebuilding doesn't require bricks. Just presence. It's been 2 months now. Tyler works part-time again, at a bookstore this time, not the game store. He said he didn't want to associate pixels with his past anymore. "They used to be my escape," he said. "Now I want things that anchor me." He's reading again. Slowly. He still has bad days, moments when the fog creeps back in, when the ceiling becomes a lure again. But now, when it does, he texts me. Or his therapist. Or Serena. He reaches out. That, to me, is the biggest miracle of all. I write this from the same kitchen where I once sat trembling after reading his journal entries. The same table where he once sat silent, head bowed, waiting for time to pass. Today, he sits across from me, eating toast with strawberry jam, eyes half-lidded with sleep but very much alive. He looks up. "You're staring again," he says. I grin. I'm allowed. He rolls his eyes but doesn't hide the smile this time. We've started a small ritual. Every evening, at sunset, we sit on the porch for 5 minutes. No phones. No music. Just quiet. Sometimes we talk. Sometimes we don't. Yesterday, he said, "Do you know what's weird?" "What?" "I'm starting to forget what the ceiling looked like." I blinked. "Is that a good thing?" "I think so," he said. "Because now, I look up, and I see sky." Epilogue. Tyler is still healing. There are no dramatic endings in real life. No magical recoveries. No perfect closures. But there are mornings. There are walks. There are conversations where once there was silence. And there is light, slow, patient, warm, where once there was only darkness. My son is not a wreck. He is rebuilding. And so am I.